Hi, I'm Sam here at Rick Jones Pianos with the piano I worked on, just finished. Kind of an unusual piano. It's a Baldwin product made by Samick, a Korean company, using Baldwin's designs. This is, well, it's a Baldwin Hamilton Grand. The front says Hamilton. Hamilton is an old brand name of Baldwin, sort of a sub-brand, kind of like Boston with Steinway, Essex with Steinway. Baldwin had a number of sub-brands that were all part of the Baldwin family, or I guess the House of Baldwin is how it used to be called. Howard, Acrosonic, Hamilton were the main sub-brands. Monarch was another Baldwin. And I think they were all, many of them were named after members of the family. And the Hamilton name was usually used on sort of lesser expensive versions of Baldwin pianos that were in existence. Aside from the Studio, which is quite well known in schools, the Baldwin Hamilton Studio, but again, that's a smaller piano, less expensive amongst their offerings. The most expensive ones, like the Concert Grand, would just say Baldwin on it, but then the lesser expensive pianos would have other brands that they owned. And that's the story with this piano. It was made in 2005 by Samick for Baldwin using the Model R scale. So that's their 5'8" grand piano. And by scale, I mean the shape of the rim, cast iron plate, bridges, and soundboard, and how that all determines the positions of the strings. That's all, like I like to say, the DNA of the piano sound. It could be, you could have hard or soft hammers, you will still have the essential tone quality as determined by the manufacturer or designer. And that's why this piano, in my opinion, doesn't sound quite like a Samick. And I've played Samick 5'8", 5'9" pianos. They have their own distinct sound. This is not it. This is a Baldwin sound. And I can hear it, especially in the melody range. Baldwin pianos, in my opinion, have a sweet, really sweet singing melody range. And this piano has that. It's really quite lovely. And Baldwin, well, they intended this piano to be a product available for those who were more on a budget, still wanted the Baldwin product, but didn't have as much money to spend. And so this piano, when new, was accordingly priced less, and likewise in their inventory today, it's priced very attractively, because it's not a Baldwin made in this country, it's made elsewhere, I think Korea or China. So, it's a piano I've thoroughly regulated, worked on. I think everything. The finish is a satin ebony, which did have some scratches. I tried my best to rub them out. Tried to make this piano look as good as it can. The satin ebony, I know, will better match a house full of wood furniture. I meet many shoppers who object to the high gloss ebony finish, which is so common in Yamaha and Kawai pianos. And oftentimes I find those shoppers are more attracted to Baldwins anyway because they make more satin finished pianos. This is yet another one. This is a satin ebony finish. And as you saw just there, it comes with a factory built-in slow close key cover or fall board. There's a hydraulic on the left side here that arrests the motion of this otherwise kind of heavy piece of wood, so you don't have anyone injuring their fingers when it's suddenly closed. So parents love that when they have children around. And it's a very satisfying piano to play. I quite enjoyed it right now. When I regulate, I always try to make sure it's as smooth and responsive as possible, and I'm quite pleased with the results on this, the way it turned out. It's by satisfying, a lot of what I mean is firm. There's more than the average amount of resistance in the keys here. They are still very responsive to subtleties in different degrees of soft playing. And that's sometimes hard to achieve on different pianos, especially lesser expensive ones, but with a proper regulation plus a quality design by Baldwin, you get good results. And I'm proud to say that I believe I've done that as a technician here. It's a very satisfying piano to play with a very wide dynamic range, a very bold sound. It's on the bright side, but still with the Baldwin sweetness, and it's very delicate when you play softly. Really a very capable piano for being only 5'8" long. That's the smallest of the grand pianos, or medium grand pianos. When they get much shorter than this, that's when we start to call them a baby grand piano, 5.5 feet and shorter. So perfect size for a relatively modest living room, but certainly very powerful if you need to bring that out the music that you're playing, and then you got all the subtlety available to you in between. Very satisfying to play in that regard. I'll call the tone a 6 on the scale from 1 to 10. It's on the bright side, and that's from mellow to bright, 5 being in the middle. This one definitely tends more toward bright, but as I said, playing it softly, none of the notes are lost, and it's a very delicate, sweet sound. And as I mentioned, the touch is a bit on the firm side, but it's very smooth and responsive, so it doesn't tire you out. It just, I know that, in my opinion, Baldwin Grands often, and especially the large ones that I've played, they tend to have more of a firm touch. In my opinion, they were trying to compete with Steinway, which is also known for a firm touch, and indeed, Baldwin was one of Steinway's chief competitors for much of the 20th century. And they had their own following of concert artists, and Earl Wild, the classical pianist, or George Bollett, Dave Brubeck, jazz pianist. And in my opinion, the sort of the firmness that I often encounter in Baldwin pianos is kind of an answer to Steinway firmness that concert pianists so often search for in a concert piano. So this piano reminds me a lot of other Baldwin Grands I've played in that firmness, but it's very satisfying. So 6 it is on the scale from 1 to 10, from light to firm. Two more things. It does have its original matching bench, and well, the pictures will show this better, but the piano itself has the typical brass ferrules at the bottom of the legs, which Baldwin has. This is the original matching bench with matching ferrules, opens up the store music. And it also has a sostenuto for the middle pedal. Sometimes lesser expensive Grands don't have that, but Baldwin insisted on something a little nicer. So this is like what you would find in the Steinway. You press down notes on the keyboard, and while still holding them down, you press the middle pedal. It only engages the dampers in the up position for the notes you pre-selected. So it's like having a third hand holding down notes on the keyboard for you, and you can use the right pedal if you want in combination. And of course, like everything else we sell, this has a 10-year warranty, all parts and labor. Pardon me. And a lifetime 100% trade-up guarantee. Just please make sure you have it in tune twice a year by a professional technician, and that you keep it in a moderate stable humidity situation. So please stop by, try this out for yourself. You can play this or anything else in our inventory, but if you can't make it, you can always give us a phone call or send us an email if you have any questions. Thanks.